You guys, it's time for our next guest. She's the artist and co-author of the webcomic and now book, Oh Joy Sex Toy. Please welcome out Erika Moen! Hey, Erika, thank you for being here. I am so excited to talk to you. So you have, this is your book. Let's start here. Let's just show you what the book looks like. This is you on the front looking super cool.
It's so cute.
And this is very exciting. This came out very recently, and you put it out yourself?
Yeah, it's self-published. My husband and I self-published it together under my horribly named LLC name, so I was like, okay, we're a business now, so I need to register an LLC.
Right.
And for some reason, I didn't think you were allowed to register it as your own name. So rather than just being Erika Moen LLC, I was like, oh, I got to describe what I do. So it's Erika Moen Comics and Illustration, LLC. It doesn't fit on checks. It was.
And if you add another business, it just gets longer.
Yeah, that was the worst business decision I've made so far. But that is who published that book, is Erika Moen Comics and Illustration, LLC, publisher.
It does make it sound more legit that it's longer. I don't know. I like that. So for those of you, for the people who are here for fun employment and for cool nuts, tell us about the project. So this started as a webcomic, ohjoysextoy.com, and it's you
and my husband.
your husband, and you are. What are you doing?
Okay, well, it's a comic that it sort of talks about everything that has to do with sex and sexuality in the sex industry. And as you can tell from the title, Oh Joy Sex Toy, I do a lot of sex toy reviews. So, I am a professional full-time sex toy reviewer.
Woo! But you're employed by Erika Moen, buys sex toys and uses them, and then talks about it.com.
LLC. Yeah. my boss is the worst.
So you review sex toys, and then you make comics about them, and then all about other parts of sexuality. And then the book is a compilation of
the first year's worth of comics. Yeah. So we launched the site in April 2013, and then April 2014 was the first year. So put it all in a book, and it's almost 3 pounds. 1 year is almost 3 pounds of comics.
Big and hefty, and also I like the number one. It's very confident.
Yeah.
It's like I would have just called this the Great Book, but you guys were ready.
Well, you're a comic book artist, so this is like a graphic novel style where it's
Right.
going to be
it's
serialized.
number one of my series.
Dope, dude. I love it.
So what have you learned in the first year of drawing comics about sex and sexuality? What has that been?
Well, if I don't draw backgrounds, I can get a lot more pages done more quickly.
All right. Good lesson.
Number one. And number two is so just because you decide to talk about something a lot, people then think that you're an educator on that subject. Right. And it's like, oh, guys, I know technically what I'm doing is helping sex education, and I'm doing comics about sex education, but Jesus Christ, I'm not qualified to be a sex educator. Everything in there is just stuff you can learn from Wikipedia. I just draw pictures next to it.
So you get a lot of, do people ask you to come into classes all the time? And
not so much, I get a little bit of that, but places that would have me, high schools, that's the kind of place you think where they'd bring in sex educators, and it's like, nobody's going to bring me in a high school. Okay. You know what I mean? But no, I get a lot of, people online are like, Erika Moen, you're supposed to be a sex educator. How could you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, who told you that? Because you have some misinformation, my friend. And then I also get a lot of emails from people that are like, could you recommend me a dildo that looks like this but doesn't look like that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no.
I think you actually might be more of an expert there. There's not a schooling program for that and a year's worth of reviews. Maybe that's you do actually say on your FAQs on your website no advice, you just don't have time. Do a lot of people ask you sex advice questions too?
I just got an email from somebody asking me if they were pregnant.
With no other information? Yes, probably. That's
Erika.
Check.
Did you use a condom?
No, and they gave the thing where they're just like, usually we use condoms, but then the last month we haven't been. Am I pregnant? And I was like, I didn't have the heart to reply because it was a very heartfelt email,
right.
And I just couldn't reply to it, period, because there was no way for me to do that without being snarky, because they asked, is there any way for me to know for sure if I'm pregnant? It's like, have you never heard of the pee stick?
It's so funny. They probably had no one else to ask, and that's why you got the email.
I think it was the panic where you're just like, oh, I need to ask somebody. Oh, Erika talks about sex. Tell me, Erika, am I pregnant? And I I couldn't reply because I would have been snarky, and that they don't need that right now. They have enough on their mind.
Maybe, tough love, snarky love. Is that a thing?
Or you could Google, "Am I pregnant?" and I'm sure Google would be able to give you some help. But
I bet if you start typing on Google, "Am I?" the fill-in is going to be pregnant.
Pregnant, yeah, it's probably.
Also, there's like some terrifying implications in that, which is just like, well, I was using condoms, and then we weren't. That's not a very healthy process that they.
Well, and then I think like their period was late, and it was just like, read everything you just told me, honey. Or worst case scenario, wait 9 months. Let's.
Do you?
You get it, right? Okay.
Yeah, that would help. I was listening to an interview with Dan Savage where he says he gets people just send him photos of their junk all the time, and are like, "Is this what is this? What are these growths?" Do you get that kind of gross stuff?
I haven't gotten photos sent yet. I've actually been really surprised that people have not been skeevy at me, because I'm a woman on the internet talking about sex. I thought I would just be deluged with people being dicks to me.
You haven't been.
Not from men being assholes, but nobody has sent me a picture of their dick. That's not an invitation. I've only just recently gotten one person who was like, "Erika Moen, you talk about sex all day long. What's your chatterbait handle? Don't be shy about it. You look at your job." And it was like, block.
Yeah.
But
so you get it's like 1 in a million skeevy then? That's amazing.
Skeevy wise. I do have harassers and assholes, but it's as far as men jerking off, they've been very polite. They've been very respectful.
It's the most uplifting thing someone said on the show today. I'm glad about that. So do you attribute that to anything? Is it because one of the things you've done is not even in you're reviewing a sex toy for these panels, but also through the way you draw the people that are participating in it, Are you just overwhelmingly cool, and so it's hard to be a skeevy to you because you're just too nice, and is that a problem?
I don't know. I've always wondered why I don't get more. I don't get criticism from men's right activists, conservative Christian. What? I didn't get that Lids joke.
Lids is a hat store at the mall.
It's just a douchey hat store at the mall, so we figured that's where douchey guys would hang out.
Okay.
Lids with a Z, have you?
Baby, I'm going to the bookstore.
Yeah.
No, I'd never heard of them. All right, sorry, I didn't get your joke. But
no, that was great. We just said.
Thank you for explaining it to me.
I'm a qualified joke educator, so I was ready for that.
But yeah, I don't get harassment from the people that you traditionally think of who would harass a woman on the internet. Sorry, what was the question?
No, we veered negative.
Oh, why is that?
I was just wondering if it's because you're too cool.
No, I think that they just don't give a fuck about my thing. I think it's not on their radar.
But you're on everybody else's radar because this has exploded. That sounds like a weird word for this, but it's been very popular. Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry. One of the reasons is that they're very funny, and another one is that the drawings are super cute. And I want to show people who have not, in case you haven't seen this, I'm going to warm up the projector because we're going to do this in a second.
Okay.
I hope that's going to warm up the projector technology. Anyway, I'm going to show some. So there's going to be some cute images behind me in a second here. But what's your the way you approach the topic? What is your goal for the way you draw things and the way you talk about them? What are you trying to?
I'm trying to make the comics that I needed when I was first learning about sex, which is fun, friendly, accessible. I want people to read the comics and feel like they are part of a conversation, that they're in on the joke. People are much more receptive to learning when you are making them laugh, when you're lowering their defensives, because they're like, dick joke, lol. And then they're like, oh, and what's this you're saying about how to have anal sex safely? Yeah. And so I'm very much trying to just do something friendly and accessible.
I'm sorry, it just faded in behind you, and so that was kind of a weird...
Yeah.
So, just an example of this is the Hitachi being too strong.
Yeah.
And I like it just because I like both of their faces.
Yeah.
She's not unhappy, but she's having a tough day, and the Hitachi's I'm just doing my best.
Yeah, it's a living.
That was my very first review of the Hitachi Magic Wand, and I had to list what are some downsides of it, and I had to be like, well, it can overstimulate you, and so that's the vulva being overstimulated, and then the Hitachi one being like, listen, you're cut off, you've had enough, you need a break.
It's time for some frank talk up there.
Yeah.
And you mentioned a second ago certain safe lessons having to do. So I'm going to show you the snails, because the snails are my favorite thing. Just click next or press an arrow or whatever you want to do. Yeah. So these are the anal safety snails, and they're all about going slow. And they are the cutest thing. And they're so good. And anytime she's talking about that subject, the snails show up. And it's so cute. And one of my favorite things in the book, in the back of the book, you have some FAQs about the book that you get a lot of. And one of the questions is about the safety snails. So tell me about how the safety snails came about.
Okay, so my husband wrote a review of Fleshlight's Sex in a Can fleshlight thing for your wiener.
Yeah.
And I just had a bunch of his talking heads explaining it. And in comics, something you want to avoid is just having panels of talking heads. It's really repetitive. It's boring for the viewer to read. And I needed to like throw in something else, but I didn't know what else to put in there. And I'd recently just done a painting of a snail. So snails were kind of on my mind. And I was like, I'm just going to have these two snails jump in and give a little information.
It wasn't a plan that you were like, well, look, they're all about slow and they're always very lubricated.
Not at all. Like it was just
happened to like snails.
I just wanted to draw a snail, and I had them introduce themselves as okay. So and the toy I was reviewing was a butt in the can. So I had them call themselves the anal safety snails. And then on Twitter, somebody was like, Erika, that was so clever how you had the acronym BASS, ass. And I was like,
totally on accident.
Oh my God. And then later when I was doing a comic about how to have butt sex, one of the things is like you're supposed to go slow, and you're supposed to use a whole bunch of lube, and you're supposed to communicate a lot. And I realized
never add any salt.
No salt.
I'm sorry.
But a lot of butter is okay if you're French.
Well, and I realized, like, snails, they're really slimy. They're really looby.
Yeah,
so, like, they go slow, they're looby, and in my world, they like to talk to each other and communicate openly and honestly.
Yeah, that's the only part that I don't think everyone knew. But that is, like, it's such an amazing... They're so cute, and it's a great, like,
they love each other.
Yeah. So... Let me ask you a question about, you mentioned you're not an educator, right? But you also, as the year went along, one of the things that changed is it seemed like you started to feel some responsibility for it. Is that true? Like it seems like you changed the tone. It got more educational, more like welcome to the fun club instead of just this is a thing that's super fun for me. Was that a conscious decision? Did you start to feel like because people were asking you questions about whether they're pregnant, did you start to like turn up your level of...
Well, it had always been built into it all along that there would be sex education in there. Because originally, before I started Oh Joy Sex Toy, I'd spent a year working on an educational book geared towards teenagers about how to become sexually active safely, which was 100% sex ed. And this is like how to do stuff. And then I kind of got burned out on that project. So I knew going into this one, sex ed is super, super important to me. And I knew that I wanted that to be in this comic as well, but I also could couch it with, or surround it with, like sex toys, da-da-da-da-da-da. But so sex ed was always like something that would be a priority in that comic.
And is that going to be, so what's your, like now that you've got the book, you're working on number 2, like you're working on your second year, what's the next, what's the direction you're going to do this year? Is there something we have to look forward to? Is there a new thing you're going to do a direction you haven't tried before?
Like what we're doing is working out really well already.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I'm not saying you have to change. Don't ever change.
A change that just happened maybe about 6 months ago is my husband. He has been working on the project full time with me, but he was also working at his other job doing like website stuff. It was always very confusing to me, and then he got laid off after working there 5 years, and so he now is working on this project with me full time, and so having both of us working on it full time is allowing us to like kind of expand it a little bit, but within reason. We're not trying to like go nuts.
Yeah, your website could get fancier.
Yeah.
Get a lot of his free time for that. Is that so? You still draw both people, right? You draw when it's his stories as well as when it's your stories. Is it harder to draw the other side's toys?
No, not at all.
Is it more? What's the most fun thing to draw then? What's the most fun?
Most fun. I really love drawing vulvas. That's.
I did this comedy show where the artist draws from the comics the stand-up comedians' jokes, and penises. They're so excited to draw a penis, but when someone told a vagina joke, the artist did not know what to do, and it was determined that comic book artists or artists in general draw dicks more than vaginas.
Yeah. Well, actually, the funny thing is, I'm really bad at drawing dicks, and for about the first year's worth, I would draw the head on backwards. Like every time, and
I knew a guy like that.
So it was like.
And each time my husband would come over and he'd look at it and his face would fall and he'd be like, baby. And he actually is a really good artist too. And he basically the first years of penises in that comic were drawn by my husband. And he'd also be like, how do you not know this by now? And I'd be like, I don't know which way it's facing when it's inside my mouth. So,
yeah, girl.
Don't got eyes in there.
That's right.
So.
It's also like it's a different angle, right? Like when I look in my hair in the mirror, the part is on a different side than I think.
It's the same thing, Alex. You're right.
Like
same thing. Exactly the same thing.
I'm penis dyslexic.
I didn't want to say anything, but when you did overhand for the can, which seemed like it wouldn't happen. So it seems like maybe you just think penises are the opposite side.
I mean, like you've got the can right side up and the hole's at the top, and then you go like this. Right?
Doesn't that seem awkward? Does this not seem like a hard...
I haven't used it, so I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It's a good thing that he's there to help you put the heads on straight. So you're going to be outside after you're going to be in the lobby area after this. You're going to be signing copies of the book. This is what the book is. You guys should get it. It's heavy, but it's also adorable. So get a book. She'll sign it. And you can also find them at ojoysextoy.com.
Yep.
And... that's good.
Ooh, that's it.
Good.
My Twitter is Erika Moen.
Nice.
And Erika spelled with a K, because Erika with a C is somebody else. And she gets a lot of my email if that's meant for me.
Oh, no! And we know what those emails are.
Oh, yeah. No, she forwards them to me. It's hilarious.
Erika with the C will answer whether or not you're pregnant, though. She's very quick on that. Ladies and gentlemen, Erika Moen, ojoysextoy.com. That's the book.